Hello everyone, Joe here. Thanks for joining me. And today I'd like to go over some color correction stuff that can really take an image that's okay and turn it into a nice photograph. And this one's kind of also in honor of our upcoming trip to Newport, Rhode Island. This is actually in the harbor. These are the masts of the schooner. I think it's a schooner, the Oliver Hazard Perry. And as you can see, the camera did not do a great job of picking an auto white balance for the sky. It looks off. Also, it is apparent that I used a polarizer on this because the difference of the sky darkness from here down is pretty dramatic. So I think we're going to need to fix that as well. The problem is with all of the lines in the rigging and the clouds and the sails, it's going to be tough to isolate them. You might think initially, let's just do a sky selection. Well, let's try it. I don't think it's going to work. So we choose sky, and if you notice, it picks up the clouds, but it also picks up all the white sails, which means it's also picking up the white lines. That's not going to work, so let's undo that. In fact, we can just delete that one. I think there's a better way, and what we're going to do is come down. Let me hit enter on that to get rid of those. We're going to start by coming down just to the basic panel. Let's just do a couple of basic adjustments first. If we look at the flag here, you can see it's dangerously getting close to pure white. If I put the little hand over top of it and you look at the numbers under the histogram, notice it's 97.7, 97.7, and 97.2. That's good, because it's safe, but on the screen it looks too light, which means it's going to be washed out in a print. So let's go ahead and fix some of that stuff. I'm going to start by bringing the highlights down a bunch just to protect that. Now if we look in there, it's still not the density I want, but it's a good starting point. Let's take it a little step further and bring the whites down a little bit too. Yeah, that's going to help. Now this image, let's see, I can't remember what camera this was shot with. Let's take a look. This was shot with a Fuji XS10. I liked this camera. My biggest complaint was that Lightroom doesn't play well with it because the sharpness isn't there. I always found myself having to sharpen the Fuji files, and I think it's a problem with the raw converter. I think it's a problem with the raw converter in Lightroom and the Fuji cameras. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. So because of that, let's go ahead. We're going to add a little bit more texture than I might normally. Oh, maybe something like that. Add some clarity. I'm not going to dehaze this, but I am going to bring up the vibrance and the saturation. Maybe not quite that much. Don't want to overdo it. Yeah, 13, 14, that's fine. So now when we zoom out of that, we've got better color. Oh, and by the way, let me make a virtual copy of this, Command apostrophe. And I'm going to reset the one we started working on so that we can go back and forth and maybe even see them side by side. Now, you might think, well, that's an improvement, and it is. If we zoom in here, yeah, it's starting to look good. We need more, though. In fact, let's take a look. Do we see any noise in the sky? Actually, I'm not really seeing much in the way of noise. So when we get to sharpening, we'll deal with that. However, the problem to me is the sky up here now has gotten unnaturally super polarized dark. And we saw that selecting it by trying to create a sky mask, it just simply doesn't work because it picks up all of the lines and all of the sails as well. So what we're going to do instead is come down to the color mixer. And since, as much as I love the point color is limited. It's actually going to do a very narrow band. What we want instead to do is use the mixer. We come over here to this little circle, click on that, and I'm going to start with hue. So I click on hue, got my circle activated, and when I bring it up into the sky, well, we can hide the information. And if I click and push it up, if you look at the sliders, you see it pushes the blue slider to the right. If I drag it down, it drags it to the left, which is kind of interesting, but not real. I find a lot of times when things go a little bit off, that somewhere between 10 or 12 or so on the plus side is generally where I want to be. All right, that blue looks much better. Now let's go to saturation. I think it could use some saturation. because we're also going to lighten this entire thing up a bit. So I'm looking down here for my saturation. And then luminance. Let's brighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to click on there. But here's the thing. I don't want to adjust the luminance too much on the bottom. I don't want to get this bottom blue down here to go too light. So here's what we're going to do. Let me just push that back up a little bit. I'm looking down again the bottom of the image. So we still need to brighten up the top of this. How can we do it? Well, we can do it in a way that it doesn't really matter if we select everything. So let's go ahead and select the sky. I'm going to select the sky here. But I just want to lighten up the parts up here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click on the mask, click on the three dots, and tell it to intersect the mask with a linear gradient. So that means only the places where both the linear gradient and the sky mask are both present will the mask be used. Now, it can be a little bit hard to see where to start with the mask live. So what you can do is hit the O key, which will temporarily hide the mask. So I'm thinking, from here down to about here is where I want it to gradate from. It's shot at an angle. So let's click right in here and drag, I think about something like that. And if we hit O again, now you get to see that's the only part of the image that's going to be affected. And I want to brighten this up a little bit. However, I also want to take the clouds out. I don't want the clouds to get any lighter. So we're going to click on subtract as well and just use a brush. And then make sure auto mask is on for this. And notice, look, I just drag over top of the cloud and it's no longer being affected. So let's go ahead and bring up the exposure and look what we can do. We can bring up that really super dark sky. It is darker, that's okay. Let's bring that up a little bit. And I think that looks a heck of a lot better. As I'm looking at it, I'm thinking this area is still a little too dark as well. So let's go to the linear gradient. If we click it, it's still live. And let's bring it down a little bit more. In fact, let's expand it out. Let's make the gradation a little smoother. And I'm going to adjust the angle just a little bit. And I think that does a better job of it. Now, if we bring up the exposure, now you can see. I just want to get it so that it's a nice, clean gradient. And I think we're in pretty good shape now. Now, conversely, down here, I want to add a little bit more saturation to the bottom. I want to get the flag a little bit better. So let's hit enter. And I'm going to get a new mask. We're going to do a linear gradient. And again, I'm showing you this just to show you where it is. But when you start doing masking in Lightroom, you're going to use K for brush. You're going to use M for linear gradient and Shift M for radial gradient. So I want linear gradient. I'm going to click about right here. And now I'm going to drag up sort of the opposite side because what I want to do here is bring up the saturation. So let's scroll down to saturation and let's just bring that up a little bit. All right, pretty good. Do we need to do more? I think we're good because let's look at where we started. In fact, let's hit the two of them. I'm going to hit Shift and we're going to hit the C key, which is compare. So let's hit compare. Shift tab gets rid of the menus and we don't need to see the information. And if we hit the L key, that will start to turn out the lights. Hit it once, it dims everything, hit it twice, and it goes to black. So the image we started with on the left, we were able to convert to the one on the right. And it's a subtle change, but knowing how to use the tools to isolate just what it is that you really want makes for a much better image. So let's zoom in. Let's zoom into the middle of the image, and you can really see the difference there. Look at how much better the sail looks here. Look at the sky. Look at the rigging. We've got more saturation in the wood. It's just overall a lot better, and it converts something that was okay to something that really looks great. So there you go, some color adjustments in Lightroom and some of its powerful masking capabilities to really perfect your image's color. That's it for today. I thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you online again soon. Bye-bye.